Hello, welcome to Truth Talk Radio. This is your host, Wild Wild Wes, and we have a guest here who's a particular inspiration for mine, Fritz Springmeier. How are you doing, Fritz?
I'm great, thank you.
Now, Fritz, we've entered a type of culture that has become very sexually immoral, very debased. It almost looks like as if we're living in a society where it's just Nero sitting in his, little, I guess, what would you call it, throne, and, watching the world burn and laughing.
Yeah.
So, first of all, tell us how you came to, your conclusions about, who the elites were and why are they doing these degenerate, trying to promote the different sexual and, evil things that they're promoting.
Well, I've been learning about things for a long time. From the time I could read, I was fascinated with history, so I started reading hundreds of history books each year, and just getting to know over time that there are certain decision makers that pull the strings and things, and getting that you can see that come through if you do a lot of studying, as I know you have too.
Yes.
And then at a certain point, you start realizing that these people at the top are a very small group, and they come from some particular powerful bloodlines, and they have a way of thinking, and they have an agenda. Mm-hmm. And so when you get to know what is that agenda, you can see that one is that they're infatuated, they're addicted to power, so they continue to try to amass more and more power. It doesn't matter if they have total power right now. Next year they want twice as much of that total power. So it's an addiction. You have to understand that a lot of things what they do don't make sense unless you understand that these people are not sane as we would consider sanity.
Well, they're like a cocaine addict or a schizophrenic person in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And then in working with people that were trying to escape the Illuminati, that's the mother of secret societies that these bloodlines belong to, I came to learn more about their trauma-based mind control, which when you understand that, then you really begin to understand that these people really are nuts. They're not just... it's just not that they're crazy from our perspective. There really is an insanity to the whole thing. And so it's insanity breeding insanity. It's generational. So it's one generation of insanity encouraging more insanity. So I say that because a lot of times people say, well, I know this is going to happen or that, because they're using logic. They're using things that make sense, and it doesn't apply. I tried to do that when I was younger too. When I first started reading, we're talking about, one has to understand how deeply I loved history as soon as I could read. So back in the 3rd grade, I was already reading adult history books on the American Civil War, and I was convinced when I got started that a slave master is going to be kind to his slaves because that's an economic investment. He's invested in that slave. But horrors of horrors, I came to realize that all along, the slave traders, the slave owners, a lot of them could care less about the economic value of the person that they had. They were just sadistic. And so, sometimes we have to step outside of thinking that everybody else thinks like we do, because they don't, and realize that they have a different way of thinking.
And that kind of reminds me, because the reason why I brought you on, Fritz Springmeier, is, Brother Fritz, is that, you know, the main problem I've seen in our society today is like this weird new cult of, like, you know, teenagers on these campuses, where a lot of them are like very big camp, like Yale and, you know, the Eastern establishment, and even Berkeley out in the West. In fact, I think even in Portland Community College, have you heard that they have a, what do they call it, a white privilege day or some weird type of communistic stuff? But the reason why I'm mentioning that, I was trying to figure out what would draw people to, like, you know, these new type of, I would call it a cult. It's really a form of a cult where, you know, it's like they're trying to complain about, you know, who's more oppressed than, like, oh, I'm a black midget, so I'm more oppressed than, you know, some. It's like they're trying to look for things to, like, that way they could accuse somebody like me or you of being a racist, or, you know, a sexist, or, you know, something stupid. You know, I've been called all kinds of, you know, names about, and the reason, I'll just let you do your thing, because I'm actually kind of having some technical difficulty. That's why I'm not talking as clearly as I usually would. I'm just trying to make sure, I'm trying to talk and at the same time read to make sure this recording thing is working, and it's working. So just please explain, where does this come from?
I kind of get a little stuck on these questions, not because I can't answer them, but because I feel like I have to condense down the answer into a bite size. Well, basically, it comes from rebellion against God.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but going back to the elite that are controlling things, there are some statements where they outline how they're going to control the people, and I'm sorry, I'm getting interrupted here. Let me close my door.
I could edit that out later.
Okay, so they've written down how they want to control people, and one of the ways that they want to control us is to turn us basically into animals. Someone who's noble, who knows what they believe, someone who's walking with God is hard to control. But if you have someone who doesn't believe in truth, doesn't respect themselves, you know, doesn't respect who they are, you know, maybe tomorrow you have this 26-year-old who's going to say, I'm a 6-year-old girl.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of craziness.
Oh, yeah.
Those kind of people are easy to control because they're not hooked into reality. They're not hooked into God. And so there's been an agenda to turn us into animals, and it's worked pretty good.
Oh, yeah, it's like training a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's what I've noticed is that, especially with all the transgender stuff, now Google, I was on Google today, and I was actually on Google Hangouts talking to some of my friends on the alt-right show. You know, we were basically talking about, you know, this person, I'm not going to mention them, but he's kind of annoying. He's a socialist. But besides that, on Google, I noticed that when I was going in, it said, oh, in fact, I could actually read it right now. Let's see if it's still up there. Oh, proud supporters of the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia? Yeah, this is strange because now they have added this, like, weird little, like, now, to explain, I don't hate any of these, you know, I don't hate transgendered people. I just don't think it's normal to any of those listening. I just want to say that transgender people, they have a mental condition. Now, obviously, a boy that thinks they're a girl, if they cut off, you know, their genitalia or their genitals, they're not going to become a woman. God created a man and a woman for a specific purpose. I don't need to give people a biology lesson, hopefully. A woman has a baby, a man, gives the semen that, produces the baby. Well, now you have men that are chopping off their own genitals, getting this surgery, and it's almost like they're enabling the insanity. Now, if, let's say somebody was a heroin addict, Fritz, and, they said, oh, I got bugs crawling in my skin. And they went to the doctor. Now, is the doctor going to open up holes in their skin to get the bugs out?
No.
Exactly. Now, it's almost as if we're living in a world where, well, I think I'm a, somebody's going to say, oh, I think I'm a woman, so I'm going to go become a girl. It's actually completely sickening.
Yeah.
Like, they're actually enabling these people to hurt themselves while saying it's going to benefit them somehow. And I think they're also doing it through the school system, because now in the schools they're like saying, well, little Johnny thinks he's a girl, so just start treating him like a girl. I mean, it's sick.
Yeah, it is. And most of the world is laughing at us. We're making a total fool of ourselves. You aren't whatever you want to imagine you are. That's craziness. That's insanity. And it's been recognized as insanity for thousands of years. But then now the Obama administration wants to take the power to themselves to cram this down our throats and tell the states that they have to start recognizing these transgender rights, which is just nonsense.
Well, what's really
just because you imagine you're something doesn't make you that.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of I was reading one of your books on MPD online, or DID. I guess that's what they call it now.
Right.
Dissociative identity disorder. And how the mind control, the TBSM. That actually trauma-based mind control. So, don't they actually tell them stuff like, "Oh, you're a teacup," and
Oh yeah.
Like, that's actually what they do in the programming. So I'm trying to figure out, is Bruce Jenner now? Well, actually, Bruce Jenner now is saying he's a man again.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just don't know what else to say. Either that I actually initially thought that this might be mind control being done on Bruce Jenner, but then I realized, oh, he's really just a confused person after now he's a man again.
Well, and it might involve mind control too. You might be hearing different alters talk.
Yeah.
Different persons.
Because I know he said it before, even during that Olympic thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he felt as if he were a woman trapped in a man's body, which itself is just, a bizarre claim. Then he became Caitlyn, which I never called him Caitlyn. I always called him Bruce Jenner,
Right.
Like, even after that, I didn't want to, like, feed into the people's, I would call it kind of a massive stupidity, So,
mm-hmm.
And some people would get mad. Oh, you're saying you're being, homophobic or whatever. And people, and that brings all these communists sending you messages and stupid things. The thing is, I even talked to a communist who didn't agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess they're more classical Marxists
mm-hmm.
that don't even agree with that. So, how did this kind of come into our society? I know it's associated with communism, though. But, I noticed in the Soviet Union, they never did that to themselves.
No, that's what the communists wrote up in their tactics to take us down. I had there's an instruction booklet that the Soviet Union gave their people on how they were going to take the United States down. And this is the kind of stuff that they said they were going to do. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's definitely something that's being done to us to shred us, to take
it's demoralizing.
To take away the last vestiges of sanity and godliness that we have.
And the thing is, like, with Obama, there's rumors, and I'm not, officially saying any of this. I'm just, saying that it's out there where Obama might have been molested himself. He has an odd poem he wrote that mm-hmm. seems to kind of that he was molested by one of the men. the father figures in his life. And he also, his mother apparently was a porno star. And isn't that the case with a lot of these, elite families?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's always something like, kind of degenerative in the family itself, and that's why some of these people themselves, like homosexuals, a large percentage of them have been abused as children.
Mm-hmm.
So from what I understand, the elites have been abusing their children from generations to generations. They have a case where they spoil the child, right, and then they abuse them.
Right, sexual confusion and not knowing sexual boundaries and all these kind of things are wrapped up with the mind control that they've been doing to their own children for centuries.
And so now, when we get onto the topic of satanic ritual abuse, which specifically in itself is, people like a lot of the atheists and, some of these, kind of liberal, quote-unquote, Christians will go and say, oh, that's just, that's fear-mongering, and, Satanists aren't really like that. I've even heard that. Oh, there's some people saying, oh, Satan is finding Satanism is even finding a way to God, I've heard from New Agers. Which is, that's really disturbing, because if you really think of the whole point of Satanism, it's, it's pure, it's actually glorifying evil.
Right.
In fact, there's I'm not going to mention this person, because, I don't want this person firing a curse up at me or something, but it's somebody on YouTube, I know. But besides that,
well, bringing up Satanism is directly pertinent to what you were saying, because in Satanism they have this do what thou wilt. In other words, do whatever you want. You're a man, but you want to think that you're a woman, do it. You're a man and you want to shower with the girls, do it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Satanism. So this confusion that you brought up, the transgenderism and all this, this is the tenets of Satanism. This is Satanism in action.
Yeah, it's Satanism in action. You're right. And what I was trying to say there was satanic ritual abuse. I know when we get onto that topic, and when like I say, a lot of people shun it because they don't. It is, and I can understand it is a hard topic to talk about. That there are people abusing children.
Right.
But there was actually, I think a while ago, didn't the government actually say it was a conspiracy theory to say pedophilia exists?
Did the government say pedophilia exists? I don't know if they did or not.
There was actually a time where, pedophilia doesn't happen that often or something.
Oh, well, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that the government would deny about anything, because as much evidence as there is about satanic cults and things like this, you still have the FBI and agencies like that pretending that it doesn't exist. So.
Oh yeah, and another thing was the FBI back under Hoover, I think even denied La Cosa Nostra for a while.
Yeah, he denied that the mafia existed too.
So I mean, this is the FBI just doing the same kind of corrupt little game all over again. If you think
right.
Only with satanic cults. Now, what I know is that these satanic cults. There's a group out in Michigan. Have you heard about the what do they call them? The Satanic Temple.
I don't know if I have or not. Go ahead.
Well, they are actually now handing out satanic reading material to children in schools. Atheist and satanic reading material. Because in Michigan, I guess they're very liberal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And basically what happened there was... in fact, you want me to pull that news article up for you? Because this actually has a lot to do with it. Okay. They're starting their own children protection program now, the Satanic Temple. So they want the kids to come to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have listed, never be hit in school again, exercise your religious rights. They have actually a... Yeah, can you imagine what parent would send their kid to a satanic day? Admittedly, I mean, McMartin, everyone had like a, everyone kind of denied that, and it was a big thing when it happened, but now they have openly satanic daycare centers. Do you see the picture?
Yeah, never be hit again in school.
And the whole link, I mean, they say, believe it or not, the Satanic Temple is striking back by putting together its very own children protection program in response to a recent school board decision in Florida that allows for the dissemination of religious materials in public schools. The Satanic Temple itself has announced they will follow suit by providing satanic materials to students. I mean, this sounds like something out of The Onion. And it's not. It's a real thing going on. So, I mean, what would you say to parents? I mean,
to homeschool.
Oh, yeah, that's what people should be doing from the beginning. And now, I think, it's not in America, but I think in Sweden now they're actually taking away kids for being homeschooled by Christians. Actually, in Sweden now, one of these countries, Nordic countries, they're trying to get the kids into the state system so they can brainwash them.
Right.
And this is actually really sick that... Now, in my school, I'm going to be completely honest with you, it's not that bad, but it is pretty bad. I mean, they're promoting transgenderism, and I think it's borderline. It's going to... I think one day, probably all the schools will probably end up like that if, if we get somebody, bad within the education system. Now, what is your whole view on Donald Trump? Because even if, I like him, he seems anti-globalist, but at the same time, does he really know the social issues? Or is he really even against the elite? Because that's another thing, people say, well, he seems genuine, though.
Well, here's what I can say about him. First, if he isn't running, it's an automatic shoe-in. We get Hillary. Hillary is Illuminati. She's a grand dame in the Illuminati. She goes off to California and does her witchcraft cabin rituals and stuff like this in other places. That's our other option. Do we want to give the Illuminati a fast track? I see Donald Trump as somebody who's been in the system, in the network, that worked with the powers that be. And, of course, he's a billionaire. That's no secret. But where I see that as the plus is he has his own money, so he's not beholden to anybody. And he's an old man, so at this point, he doesn't care. He doesn't care, you can see that the man's not frightened that he would get assassinated or something like this, because he's old, but he's concerned about this country. I think he really genuinely cares about this country, and I think he's the only alternative to the elite and all their candidates in their world system. Now, am I saying that he's not part of the world system? I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's enough in it that I think that it will be to his advantage. We've had other presidents that were good. Abraham Lincoln was the elite's candidate, but he had enough moxie that he did his own thing. And JFK came from an Illuminati bloodline too. And he also was his own person and had the moxie to do, even though it was the mafia that helped him get elected, he turned right around and assigned his brother the job of taking down the mafia. And he started shutting down the Illuminati's agenda across the board. So, just because Donald Trump came out of the world doesn't mean that he can't turn and do his own thing. And really, if one looks at how scared the powers that be, the Illuminati, are, I mean, they're scrambling to, George Soros is buying people to riot, and they're doing whatever they can. Their media hammers against them constantly. you never hear anything positive in the mainstream media. The prostitutes, they just hammer against them.
They hate him, and the thing is, I mean, he's, that's exactly my view. And what I have to say is, especially, we know that they're bringing in all these Muslims. I mean, some of the worst. I mean, they're actually, especially in Europe, it's actually gotten really bad where that these guys are running around raping women.
Yeah.
Do you think they're eventually, now, if Hillary gets elected, that's probably going to happen here?
Oh, yeah, they'll fast track bringing, and you see, that was all planned. That's part of taking down our culture, just like this whole thing with it all ties in with everything else that you've been talking about, bringing our culture down. You bring in all of these refugees, you bring in all of these people that don't even care about the American Constitution, and you get this dilution of what we stand for, and everything gets splintered until the point that, society is just broken and fractured. Oh, well, and they're doing it with Europe right now, and it was all planned out.
Exactly, and this has happened in several other countries. Sweden's almost a third world nation now. We have Britain. They have entire zones where there are these no-go zones, these Sharia zones. Belgium, Trump even said about Brussels, and everyone mocked him. And then we had the Brussels attack, which I don't know if that was a false flag or not. It's very well known, Brussels. I've even watched these, Al Jazeera documentaries. Al Jazeera, it seems like they only want to show the nice part of it, but these guys still do talk about jihad. They say, we're doing jihad in our own way. Well, what does that mean? Well, they say we're not going to blow up things. We're just going to promote Sharia law in other ways. So they're admitting that they're for these groups, these Sunni groups that go around, bombing churches and, leaving roadside bombs. And years ago in Lebanon, they brought in Palestinian refugees, which that's a different topic, but it was refugees who didn't have anything in common with the people there.
Right.
And I think
that has been destroyed. It will never be the same.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's its own little thing there. It's that country is pretty messed up. Another thing is and I did a lot of research on that because I was kind of foreseeing, okay, they brought in these refugees, and you think about it, that's exactly what they're trying to do here, and I think, although you could actually kind of blame Israel partially for some of that, and, several other, but I do think that Islam played a big part in that. Islam helped create the violence.
Well, yeah, there's a number of rabbis that are very happy that the Muslims are coming into Europe because they say that serves the Christians right, that their culture is being destroyed. They're actually happy and excited to see the Christian culture destroyed.
Oh, yeah, but they wouldn't want that to happen to Israel.
No, they're not going to allow it to happen in Israel.
And I'm not even against Israel's right to exist. I get accused of being an anti-Semite a lot of the time. In fact, people at school kind of make jokes about me. Like I don't like Israel or something. And, well, I don't like the leadership of Israel.
Right.
It's not that I don't like Israel or I don't like Jews. But, I get accused of being an anti-Semite. Now, obviously, I'm not. I would never, have, such mindless hatred against Jews or any group of people.
Right.
But why do they get to have a country that has its own, wall? Israel has a wall. I don't see anyone complaining about it. I mean, there's Palestinians that complain about that, but, they're a bunch of terrorists, obviously, But, yeah, if Americans want to build a wall to keep out terrorists, well, you want to keep out innocent refugees. And, you're racist.
There's no logic or censure. There's all kinds of hypocrisy and double standards to what's being done today. And that's the thing, is that people don't think for themselves. Whatever the system tells them, they think that's good, And
yeah.
So I watch a lot of craziness. I went back to college too, so I'm in school too.
Oh, are you seeing the social justice warriors running about?
Well, I see this postmodern craziness.
Oh, yeah.
Even my teachers, my physics teacher was told the class one day that there is no such thing as truth. You have your truth. I have my truth. Everybody has their own truth.
Recently had my teacher tell me there's no such thing as sin recently. That's a Catholic creation.
Yeah, we're not even getting close to that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what that is. So yeah, it's my economics teacher doesn't believe that the government could lie. My materials class teacher, we had to study how different materials are created, the alloys and things like that, and he buys the 9/11 falsehood that those metal beams in the towers just melted, which there's several thousand designers and specialists in building, architects and so forth that have come forward and said it's impossible for those metal beams to have melted. So it just there isn't any fact to what people are saying. There's no logic or reason or whatever, and it doesn't matter to them. Whatever the system says, they just regurgitate it.
Oh, it's like in 1984, and the thing is, when I mentioned Palestine, the thing is, America really needs a wall. We really do have threats. We're not like keeping out people because we're not doing it because of apartheid or anything. Israel's actually doing it for I think kind of apartheid reasons.
Right.
And I'm all for building a wall. I mean, if they're doing it to keep it, and I know that they're trying to keep out Hamas and all those groups. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. But the good thing that I'm going to say, if it comes out of building the wall, they don't get attacked as much. Yet in America, we always have these clashes with these cartels, but the media never talks about them.
Right.
So,
well, I've talked with a lot of Mexicans. I've had quite a few Mexican friends, and pretty much a consensus of the way they would talk to me is they would say, Fritz, when I came to America, I came to make money. I was either going to make it working or stealing, but I was going to get money to take back to Mexico or send back to Mexico.
Yeah, well, there's even upper middle class.
Part of it we spend on boots and women. Pardon me?
There's even upper middle class Mexicans coming up from Mexico, and then they come here and kind of leech off the system, more or less. And the state does nothing about it.
Well, once they become a citizen, they no longer have to work. They can get it from welfare. So, but the thing of it is we need to take care of our own people.
Exactly.
We've got a high percentage of black youth that don't have jobs. This is a person's first responsibility, and this is scriptural, is to their own.
Exactly.
You take care of your own family. The United States needs to take care of our own people. We don't need to be inviting all the poor people of the world to come in.
Yeah, they're not our own. Yeah, you're right. Those are not our people. They haven't lived here for generations as we have, Fritz. Right. Another thing is, there's a scripture in the Bible where it says a man that does not take care of his own is actually worse than an infidel, I think.
Right, it does. And by extension, that means that the black people who generations ago were helping build this nation, they should be able to find employment. We shouldn't be giving that employment to somebody who slipped across the border illegally.
Exactly. And there's also the case with the homosexuality. We all know about the pink swastika. I actually take a lot of crap from the neo-Nazis too, because they want me to go and just attack the Jews and, to blame Jews on everything, which is stupid. And, I am critical of Israel, and I'm critical of Jews. I'm critical of Judaism. And I say I'm critical of Jews, because Jews are a religion. They're not a race. I think that needs to be stated. Now, is there a Jewish race? Kind of. But, I think that definitely plays a part, because, that's why these Nazis have the views they have, because they experience the racism from the Jews. But, and then they go the other extreme and become Nazis, which is a stupid thing in itself. Now, Hitler, we know, was run by the elites. Am I correct?
Right. Definitely.
And did he turn on them, or what was it like, or he stayed kind of a pawn?
Well, it's
complicated because
you can listen to the statements of some of the people that financially backed him, and they would say things like, he's our puppet, he dances to our tune, and so forth. And yet, Hitler had the popularity and the power that if he wanted to do something, he did it. So he didn't follow their plan exactly, but he followed it close enough that at the end of World War II, a lot of these Nazis were brought by the Illuminati into the West, into United States, into Canada, and as you well know, I'm sure, the center of NASA was structured around this core of Nazi scientists. A lot of them had been SS officers.
Yeah, it's the secret space program. In fact, they even had, I think they even had him like on a Disney movie. There's an old video where promoting NASA, where they have him show all the rockets. This is what we'll have in the future and all. And he's a German scientist. There's another thing is about the Nazi thing. They were homosexuals.
Yeah, the SA were, and the SS was actually SS. The occult name is Schwarze Sonne, which Schwarze Sonne means the black sun, and it was actually at the core of it, Luciferian or satanic worship, but under the disguise of sun worship. And the center of that new religion was Niedelsburg Castle. The point I'm making is that the SS was not just simply a
paramilitary.
People think of it as an elite military group, but actually, in reality, it was like priests of the new religion.
They were almost like Luciferian priests.
Yeah, they had occult rituals.
Yeah, in fact, in Weilsburg Castle, we know Michael Aquino had the Weilsburg working.
Yeah, I know somebody that's wanting to escape from the Illuminati that was in that castle doing rituals. So, it all ties together. So
now I'm trying to figure out, was the homosexuality that we're seeing in the brown shirts, a lot of these homosexual groups are very violent. Now someone said, well, where are you getting that? Well, just most of the violence, from what I've noticed at these anti-Trump protests, is coming from these anarchist types.
Right.
And a lot of them always happen to be transsexual or homosexual, and it's like this weird thing. Is same thing with those Occupy Wall Street protesters. A lot of the communists were, and I'm not saying that the Nazis were communists, for people trying to accuse me of that. I don't like communism or Nazism, but I don't like leftism in general, really.
There's definitely a very violent violent side to the homosexual movement. Back in 1993, when I was walking Hawthorne Boulevard here in Portland, at that time I lived close there, and these militant gays were handing out flyers, kill the Christians. Now, if a Christian at that point in time in Oregon had been handing out a flyer, kill the gays, it would have been 5 years automatic hate crime. 5 years. They had already been putting people in prison for 5 years for speaking against homosexuals. But it wasn't a level playing field. You can see how they had the Christians targeted in this country, even clear back then in '93, that they could do this on the street and get away with it.
Yeah, and it's like, have you ever read the book The Pink Swastika?
Years ago. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I would suggest that book to anyone listening, and what he goes into, he even says that Hitler himself had sexual perversions and things.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, Hitler himself, was Hitler a homosexual, or?
He was probably all over the place. He was a programmed multiple personality, and he was just all over the place. There's some pretty strong circumstantial evidence that because of sexuality things, he murdered his niece, Gaily.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he urinated on her or something. But another thing is, with Hitler, our own president, it's quite possible is into some degenerate behavior. President Obama, and we know about the gays, who they actually knew him from, I believe Reverend Jeremiah Wright. No, not Jeremiah Wright. What's the guy's name? I think it's Jeremiah Wright. Am I correct?
I don't know about Obama's sexual life. That's something I haven't studied, except I did do an article about Michelle at one point.
Oh, yeah, Michelle. There's people who say she's a transvestite. Or that, Michelle...
Well, at times you can see her penis sticking out, and there are ways that you can physically tell a difference between a man and a woman, and she's across the board got all the features that show she's a man. Oh. It's pretty... When you look at those, go point by point, you go, whoa, okay, this is a man.
Yeah.
But, so I guess you could call him Michael if you wanted instead of
Michael. Yeah, it's actually probably better, so I'm going to call Michael Obama. Oy. Oh, man. Because I've seen the pictures, and then we know Joan Rivers ended up, she had her death, Joan Rivers, her own death was very mysterious. She basically said that everyone in Hollywood knows Michael Obama's gay, and that what was it? That the thing that happened to her, she was going to get some sort of surgery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
so she didn't last very long after she talked like that, did she?
No. And it was right after she had said that, basically, and that itself is very strange. And then we have these people weren't killed, but actually there were bankers that ended up dead, right?
There's been over 50 bankers that have been suicided. They were murdered. They were obvious murders, but the police don't investigate them. But the thing that's kind of unnerving is I try to stay in contact with certain of the Illuminati hierarchy. Try to have connections in because I'm trying to research and monitor what's going on, and they told me they were gonna murder all these bankers, and then they did with impunity. It's just absolutely amazing, and the police won't investigate them even though people ask. And now they're taking out alternative doctors. And they've gotten over 20 of them. They just got a few more recently.
I had to turn it down a bit, the volume. So
are you able to hear me okay?
I can hear you, but it's kind of loud back here. That's why I need to move it upstairs where it's a closed door, and we could talk. It would be we wouldn't have to. I could hear you better, but So, because I mean, there's all kinds of background noise in the back, which makes this a lot harder. But besides that, I would say, what about this? You know, you had the 50 bankers. Then what was it? 50 natural. I can't remember how many it was. Natural health people. They were some sort of practitioners. Were murdered.
Yeah, not as many. Only like about 25.
And then there was also, I think, a general and like some scientists too.
Well, yeah, it's been kind of hard on some of the generals and scientists also.
Yeah, and then also not only that, but Obama purged like how many military officers, like just kicked them out from their positions.
There were quite a few. I lost track. It's been quite a while since that purging, and I don't remember. But yeah, they weeded out any of them that they didn't think were hardcore to follow their global agenda.
Yeah, and now this also makes me get on to another point: the abortion clinics, and you know this whole culture of death. Even some of these movies now, like have you seen the Alien versus Predator Requiem?
No, I saw Alien versus Predator, the first movie.
Oh, well, in Requiem, well, even Alien vs. Predator, I think it was all about the ancient aliens thing.
Yeah.
That whole thing itself. And what I've noticed, well, there was also Prometheus. That itself was very occultic. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very occultic, and there was actually kind of like sexual symbolism in that. Did you see it? I mean, it really the whole, you know, that whole Sigourney Weaver based movie series it's really perverted if you think about it.
Yeah, and where are you going with the fact that Hollywood is perverted?
Well, we know Hollywood's perverted, Fritz, but I'm trying to say, like, are they trying to promote an idea of like this hybridization of a human and, you know, some other type of, you know, creature, and we kind of know the genetic.
Well, yeah, in a way, they promote bestiality. I mean, just the concept that you don't have to have sex with your own species. You can do it with anything. Mm-hmm. You know, that's promoting bestiality. And
the reason why I mentioned Aliens was because in the new one, Requiem, they had a case where the woman in Alien vs. Predator Requiem, I guess she got, you know, one of these face hugger things, which, you know, that always kind of disgusted me. So that's why sometimes, like, you know, I could watch that movie, but then, like, it kind of disgusted me because if you think of the concept of what it is, what it's doing to the person, it's having oral sex with their face, but it produced. That's what the face hugger is.
That's weird.
Have you ever thought of that?
I haven't seen it, so...
No, I mean Alien. You know the thing that grabs onto their face and it puts the thing in their chest?
Oh, really?
You know, it comes out of their stomach.
Yeah.
I realize that's actually a perverted message in itself. But what I noticed in the new movie, they had the alien, I guess, go onto this woman in the hospital's face, and she was pregnant. And so the aliens, multiple of them, ate the baby for nutrients, I guess, and popped out of her stomach. So it's kind of promoting, like, they're already promoting, like, babies being murdered in movies now. And that's why I'm actually selling that DVD after I saw that particular scene, because it was grotesque. You know, the fact that they would put that in a movie. Now, someone says, oh, it's a science fiction movie, and, you know, I'm just being too, you know, I'm being too much of a holy roller or whatever, you know. And I get told stuff like that by people, you know, but that's, if you really think about it, what is this doing? I mean, like, of course we see the visible level. Okay, well, there's aliens coming out of a pregnant woman. You know, she was pregnant, she had a human baby in there, and then she had this thing latch onto her. Now, no one knows, well, the baby's obviously dead. You know, so what I'm going with this is there a connection, like, what's happening on the level that we see, and then, like, is there an invisible level of when people watch these movies, like, Does it like put something?
Oh yeah, it does things. Yeah, it definitely damages their spirit. It damages their minds. It damages their spirituality. Yeah, a lot goes on that people don't recognize when they watch this stuff.
Because I mean, to me, it was kind of traumatizing seeing that. Like,
yeah,
I've never seen like that was in a movie, and then there's also these horror movies that some of these people watch.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was what was it, Rosemary's Baby, and I think Antoine LaVey or Michael Aquino, one of those guys directed it. Am I correct? Or not exactly directed it, but
Mm-hmm.
they brought him on. And then there's movies like The Exorcist and all. All of those are really, if you think of it, traumatizing movies that kind of show the elite's agenda, which is Satanism.
Right.
In fact, if you really look at the one movie that the Illuminati, there's a really, Bill Schneblin now, he talked about that movie, The Exorcist, as being one of the worst movies ever made, and that there was actually witches that cursed that film. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I should actually look up that script. I think that movie, they actually mentioned that the demon possessing her is actually an Assyrian deity.
Okay.
Now the reason why I'm mentioning that is your average American technically wouldn't associate, somebody who's not really, hasn't researched this or is not a Christian, would not really associate some ancient Babylonian deity with Satan. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. But yet this movie was about demon possession, and she was possessed by this ancient Babylonian deity.
Yeah. Well, for those of us, there's only a few of us, like you've met the Caribbeans, Donna and David and Donna Carrico, that's what I'm trying to say. And, years ago, this was back in the 90s, he did a book where he showed how if you looked at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, that some of those rituals were being practiced by modern Satanism. And so there's a few people like David Carrico and myself who actually work with people that have come out of Satanism. And I can tell you that the ancient gods of Babylon and Greece and Egypt are very much a part of modern Satanism.
And it makes sense, too, because that's really the baseline for modern Satanism, because those were the first satanic religions, if you think of it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the average American, so that's why I'm saying, like, it's just so in your face. Like, even back then, that movie was made in, like, the 80s or 70s. And they actually showed it to the public. For example, the Disney, if you go on, like, some of these Disney channels, the stuff that they show is just blatantly occult 24/7. Now, what about Walt Disney himself? What kind of person was he?
He was not a nice person. He had a public image, but anybody who worked with him knew that he was a total tyrant and totally self-centered. And the creativity that came out of the Walt Disney Corporation, the movies and so forth, none of that was done by Walt Disney. But, as I grew up, I thought Walt Disney was the one who did those cartoons and everything, because he was the only one that got credit for it. But he was a taskmaster. He was he was not a nice person, but not only that, but he connected to the occult. He was a member of Freemasonry. He was involved with the mind control. So some of the early Walt Disney movies, like Fantasia, were created for the mind control.
Mm-hmm. And Fantasia is the one where they talk to Satan, am I right? No.
I don't recall them talking to Satan in that. They might have. I did a second-by-second I watched the whole movie with an Illuminati programmer, and so I was able to break that movie down second by second as to how the movie is shown to someone who in the early stages when they're a child of trauma-based mind control, for them to layer in the foundational programming images.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the things you saw, like, when doing that?
Well, the film's kind of abstract, so at a certain point, you're going to see things that will allow the child to create worlds. You know, in the mind control, they fracture the mind, and then they have to take those pieces of the mind and organize them so that they need to have worlds where they're organized. And then when you have images that aren't actual people, like you have a doorknob talking or something like that, or you can take a part of the mind and make it think that it's a talking doorknob, dehumanize it, you know.
Yeah.
Which relates to the conversation we were having earlier about dehumanizing people.
Well, I mean, even now you have this thing. Have you heard of the otherkin?
The what?
Oh, well, there are these people that go around. I'll actually post the link for that. Maybe I could. I mean, you're teaching me new things here, and I could probably teach you something. There's a thing called otherkin now, where it's. I actually a kid at school I know claims he's an otherkin, and he claims he's into witchcraft and all this other crap. And they actually identify themselves as animals.
Animals.
Yeah, well, this is more like a kind of a spiritualistic cult, and they have an 11-point star. I was wondering if that meant anything.
Yeah, that's an occult star.
I know it's 11 points in it, and then they have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then they have a Vice article on it called "Otherkin Are People Too." And I'll read you this article. And it says, otherkin are people who identify as partially or entirely non-human. A dragon, a lion, a fox, you name it. There's probably someone out there who feels, because they feel like it, they think it in their head, so it must be true, which that kind of reminds me of a quote from 1984 where he says, reality is only in the human mind.
Yeah.
And if and most people don't think, well, they say, well, why can't they have their own little world? Well, it's dangerous if you think about it.
Right.
If they're promoting this. They should really be giving these people mental health, but it says, there's probably someone out there who feels like they are more these things than they are human. The otherkin community can be found lurking on Reddit, Tumblr, TV tropes, and other online forums. The popularity of the otherkin phenomenon seems to have been steadily increasing, particularly on Tumblr. Now, have you noticed this? Like, Tumblr seems to come up with a lot of the mental illness going on?
No, I haven't. Like you say, you're introducing me to other things. I should research this otherkin stuff. This is like pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's par for the course for what's going on, but it really shows how they're taking these mind-controlled children and they're normalizing the mind control that's in their brains.
Oh yeah, well, it's a big thing now, especially all over this Tumblr, because on Tumblr, these people are able to congregate and they're able to block anyone else out who might have a different view than them.
Wow.
So that way they can only be around otherkin, and some of them even identify as half demons and angels and things. So I think it's definitely, some of it's demonic possession, but you're right, these people are under a form of mind control, and it's being promoted here. This is a Vice article just clearly acting like it's a normal thing. So it has a particular popularity on Tumblr, apparently since 2012, which I don't really remember it going on then. I guess it was slowly growing. But what does it mean to truly believe you're non-human? Do people generally wake up one day and think that they are a fox, or is this just a bizarre form of escapism? Is it body dysmorphia or fantasy? I spoke to John on Reddit, a 19-year-old from Knoxville, USA, known on the web as No Slavic. He introduced himself. I am a red foxkin who was, as we call, awakened about a year ago. Sounds new age. He said that awakening felt at the very least relieving because everything seemed to come together for me. This is what's really strange. I started getting odd dreams where I would physically change into a fox, and they were very realistic, honestly. And after a while in real life, it felt quite real, like I actually had a tail. I actually had ears. I actually had paws. At first, it was one of those things that I freaked out over, and then after a while, it was like, it's just gonna play with my tail for a minute. Every so often, John says he gets mental shifts. I could just be at home, and all of a sudden, click, the fox part of me just kind of comes out for a while, and then it just goes. Now, this sounds like a mind-controlled victim here.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like the way MPD works.
So, I mean, why are they, do you think this is like, has a handler, or is this just, some person with MPD that, whatever triggers it, Well,
they're normalizing what they're doing to people.
Oh, yeah, and, well, this is, another thing, it sounds like a bit like an elaborate horror story, kind of like Kafka's Metamorphosis or Cronenberg's The Fly, but the sensation John experienced with his tail has been identified by scientists as possible and compared to phantom limb sensation. Well, so they're not...
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. To me, it seems like MPD. But
yeah. That's exactly what we're dealing with here.
And he says, while some other can identify as the animal, while some other can identify as the animal, others identify with the animal in a more spiritual way, okay? This is the case for Ri Nagak, an 18-year-old lionkin who wishes to remain anonymous. And he actually shows a picture of his tattoo of a lion he's had put on his arm, which is itself kind of weird. He says, I feel a special connection with the lion. I feel like I demonstrate many of the same characteristics as the animal. It's mostly a secret in my day-to-day life. But the traits that I share with lions do help me. In pagan religions of the past, it wasn't uncommon to believe that humans would be reborn as animals. So the idea that I was in a past life a lion is not as far-fetched as some would think. So it's MPD and like neo-paganism, if you really look at it. I mean, Fiona or Fief 34 and from the UK is not otherkin herself, but participates frequently in otherkin forums. She says, I know some otherkin very personally, and it's very hard to put into words, but you can tell there's something different. It's not something tangible, it's just a quality about them. It's I imagine some sort of demonic energy field around them.
Well, I have met with across the board with people that are programmed with what's called MK Ultra or Monarch programming, but the wider designation is trauma-based mind control. There's always some dehumanized personalities in there that think that they're cats, that they're dogs, occasionally horses. You get this, so like in one of my classes, this girl always wears these ears.
Oh, I've seen that before too.
So I highly suspected that those were cat ears. So I was just curious. So I go, well, are those rabbit or cat ears? And she goes, cat ears.
Does anyone at the school know who you are? And like,
Yeah, there are a few.
Because I mean, those leftists there sound like, they would probably talk crap about you and stuff. They talk crap about me at school.
Yeah. Well, I polarize people, people are either going to love me or hate me.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing with me. Only, like, with me, like, they kind of can't make up their decision because I haven't really, I think maybe now they're going to hate me. I had you on. Oh, no. They already do kind of hate me, but, I don't mind that. But besides that, He says online she is Fiona Cat. Her furry. Okay. If you really think she's this is one woman who goes online. I think she says she's an otherkin. Thief searched long and hard, but never awakened. I tried a lot, and if you really think of it, it's like these people are looking at this like they're looking for a religion, like being an animal is like their religion to them.
Yeah,
it's really bizarre. This is their faith. She never. This one's still searching. I tried a lot of kinds of experiences people were talking about, like guided meditation, which is a cult, but I just didn't get anywhere near. She tells me instead she defines herself as a furry. The definition of a furry is not fixed, but is generally thought of as someone who likes fictionalized anthropomorphic figures and dresses up in fursuits. Online, she is Fiona Cat, her furry being a European short-haired house cat. I first developed the character back in 1996 or 97. At the time, I was just looking around for something fun, and I found this furry thing and was like, ooh, I like the sound of that. Of the 11 online otherkin I got in touch with, only 3 maintained that they were openly otherkin in real life. As Dragonkin Azuril explained, my dragon persona lives strictly online. I believe myself personally to be entirely human. So this person, I guess, is just kind of like a, just on there to look to be accepted on something.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these people are mainly genuine. Oh, this is disgusting. And she explains that, okay, like transgender people, some otherkin do feel dysmorphic with their human bodies. They want to become more like that animal, just like how some trans people want to alter their physicality. Some otherkin actually have surgery to look more like the animal or creature.